Oh, we are live, back in action, attacking your speakers from the field to the bleachers. This is the Power 32 podcast, along with the smart ass Mr. Kenny 49ers, Mr. Kenny Colt, Mr. Kenny Pickums, aka everything. We got Kenny in the house, and Mr. Primetime 313 representing Detroit, as I am today with my hat. I don't know if you noticed or not, but
yeah, I was going to say something, man. I like that. I'm
wearing
liking that.
Tigers 2000 hat. Don't even ask me how I got this thing. No
Pleasant surprise this year of the for the Tigers in the American League. They got like the first or second best record in the American League, and their pitching staff is just out of this world right now, man. I'm
and they don't even have Verlander anymore, right?
No, no Verlander. Man, remember when they had Verlander, Scherzer?
That's when I laughed about baseball, bro.
Freaking, they had like a Cy Young lineup all the way across the board.
Yeah, they had what's the other guy? The guy with the two colored eyes, Max Scherzer.
That's my favorite. He's my favorite right-handed pitcher of all time, believe it or not.
Oh, all right.
Max Scherzer, Mad Max. I love him.
Not a bad one to have, man. Not a bad one to have. I love it. Well, here we are. The draft is over, but we are going to review parts of it. We're going to really go over our best and our worst from the draft. You know, top teams that we think didn't do so good. We'll mix in a little bit more action talking about some teams' futures. I'm excited about a few teams that didn't do so well last year that may coming up in 2025 and vice versa. So we'll talk about that, a whole lot more. Ready to rock and roll. Here we go. Power 32 in the house. Let's get at it, fellas. If you are ready, I am ready to roll.
Yes, sir.
Let's do
it. Well, before everything, as we know traditionally, we start with a trivia question on the show.
Oh, boy.
Here we go. If you guys, I can give you the option of making this a collective answer if you want, because you do have to think about it for a second. All right, so here you go. Which NFL division has the most Super Bowls shared among their teams? So which division in the NFL has the most Super Bowls? You don't have to tell me how many, just which one has the most.
At first, it seems like it's an easy answer.
I feel like it's easy too, but it's going to
really not. That's why it's probably not.
Well,
I'm going to go with it anyway. NFC East. NFC East, yeah, NFC East.
That was gonna
probably not it, but that's what I'm gonna
give me. I'm gonna go with Kenny. I'm thinking NFC East. But now that I'm actually, you know what? Yep, NFC East.
Yeah, stick with the gut, man. NFC East is correct. That is right. They have 14. Next in line is the AFC West with 10. The AFC East with 9, and so on and so forth. Don't need to go through all of them, obviously, but you guys got it right. Well done. Good start.
Crazy. Awesome.
Good start.
Awesome.
Excellent job. I love it. All right, so the trivia is in the books for the day. They both got the correct answer. Well done. I love it. I love it. Here we go. So a lot of draft talk that we have to get to, obviously, and I know that people have been talking about it already for the past week and whatnot. We had our live draft. It was freaking great. We thank you all for coming out and showing the love, and just, again, much appreciated. It was a great show. Went on for almost 4 hours. Unbelievable. We're not going to do 4 hours tonight. I promise.
That's like 3 times what we usually do. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I still can't, I went back and kind of looked at bits and pieces. I still can't, but the thing that, like I said, we were texting back and forth, the thing I was the most proud of, man, we stayed strong through that whole 4 hours.
We did, man.
There was very few like lulls in the action or whatever.
Nobody yawned.
Engaged, and it was pretty. That
was
pretty cool.
Yawned.
Yeah, nobody even yawned or anything. We were good to go. We were fired
up. I think we all got up like once to go to the John, and Kenny was munching on some stuff. I was munching on stuff.
I was eating fish tacos, but I didn't leave.
Kenny was eating the edibles. That's what he was eating. I don't blame him.
Yeah, breakfast edibles.
Yeah. Love it. So, all right, obviously the craziest thing of the draft was Shedeur Sanders. I mean, none of us had him going that late. What was it, pick 144? And ironically, he goes to Cleveland anyway after they pick up, this kid Dylan Brooks in the 3rd round. So it's all really strange. It's nuts. But he ends up where a lot of people thought he was going to end up at, just not in the 5th round, guys, right? So a little weird. Definitely got to get your thoughts on this one, because I put out a poll on Twitter. Why is Shedeur Sanders sliding? Is it because he's a poor interviewer? Is it because of his dad? Or is he just not that good?
Check.
All of them, mate. All right, Kenny. So start us off. Is that why he fell?
I'll go quick. And you guys know how much I loved Shedeur, and I still do. And I still have him ranked as my #1 corner. He's going to be the best quarterback in this draft class. You mark my words. But right now, he's not. He interviews nobody would hire this man for a regular job the way he goes there. A coach actually came out and complained, publicly made a statement. I don't know if it was anonymous or public, but it was a coach that was like, "This kid is horrible. He interviews horribly." Also, I also don't believe that people want to deal with his pops, and that could be one thing too. And so we spoke about it before the draft. That what's his name? What's that guy's name? He played with Dion on the Niners. I got his name. Hold on.
What position?
I forgot what position. I got Bill Musgrave. Bill Musgrave and Deion Sanders both played together on the 49ers.
The Hall of Famer Bill Musgrave.
And so I think here's the thing, and you guys know I'm the Conspiracy Kenny, and then I'll let David give the details. I just want to say that I think the NFL's rigged. You know that. He went to the same team he was supposed to go to just later, and is now not getting paid any money. Now he's super cheap. And so I think the NFL and coaches and management, GMs, they were teaching him a lesson.
Well, look, I'm not going to go crazy Conspiracy Kenny on that one, because they all do talk. There is no doubt about it. They talk, and it would be crazy to say, you know what, hey, let's shove this kid all the way down to the 5th round just to teach him a lesson. But they do have talks like that behind the scenes. Do I believe that happens? Necessarily? No.
They all go to the same country clubs.
They definitely do. They hang out at the same Bohemian Grove and all that crazy stuff. I know what they do in their spare time with these rich people over here, but I don't know, Prime, you see any conspiracy behind it, or did he go where he should have gone?
I think he went where he was supposed to go, but like when we were off the air over the course of this past week, I think the one thing that kind of sticks out in my mind, you talk about conspiracy, I'm going to put on my Kenny hat for a minute.
Ooh.
I think it was a ratings thing. I think, we all know that the draft is a big money, big deal now. It goes from just, a few guys in the room announcing some picks to now this thing is on location. Cities are actually bidding, for the draft nowadays. And I think that the longer, and it's very, very far-fetched, but I think the longer they were able to prolong that drama, because everybody was that was kind of like must-see TV. Everybody was talking about, where's he going? And then when he started to slide, it kind of became like front page news. And the NFL said, well, we can kind of capitalize on this. The longer we can keep him around, the more that people are going to tune in to day 2 and day 3 of the draft. And, like I say, as crazy as it sounds, they probably paid him a bag to sit back and just say, hey, don't say anything. This is what we're going to do. You're going to end up with Cleveland anyway. So let's just do this. Let's keep the interest, and, just hang with us and take this bag and, shut your dad up, which was, I think, the key thing there. But, just if you're really into conspiracy theories, it could have been a ratings ploy, long story short. So, at the end of the day, he got what he wanted. Like you say, it cost him probably 30 or 40 million bucks, though, contractually, whether or not the conspiracy theory is true, whatever he may have gotten on the side. But he lost a lot of money going from the 1st round to the 5th round. But if the conspiracy theory is anything close to being true, the NFL made a bunch of money, and he probably still got, 10-12 million bucks in the bag. But like I said, that's a conspiracy theory.
They looked really happy when they got signed. There was no skin off their astrobula.
Yeah,
they were fine, bro.
And that's why you kind of lean into the conspiracy theory a little bit more. It's like he wasn't disappointed, he wasn't crying, he wasn't, he was, and I know it was just the elation of being picked, period. But and just on a side note, there, I read somewhere, I don't know how true it is, I didn't get a chance to follow up with it, but Shiloh fired Deion Sanders as their agent.
Got himself an agent and got signed.
Real agent. So I don't know if Shedeur was following in lockstep with that, but yeah, Shiloh ended up firing Primetime as his agent.
And he's in Tampa now, so
I think in a way all this actually can be true. I know there are conspiracies, in the NFL. It happens all the time. I do know these guys collude behind the scenes. I get it, but when I saw him get drafted, I did see jubilation. I saw he was really happy, and he knew he was on TV, so I don't think that he was going to sit there and sulk and be like, oh my God, look at me. What was me? I'm going to Cleveland in the 5th round. Look, what the hell? This is bullshit. Right. I think he wanted to show like, all right, I'm genuinely happy I got drafted. again, on the other hand, I understand what you guys are saying, and is it possible? Yes. The good angel in me over here tries not to believe that stuff and wants to believe the NFL is pure. It's getting harder and harder as the minutes go by. I'll be honest with you.
One other little thing, the Jeff Ulbrich situation with his kid, 21-year-old prank calling.
You thought he was going earlier.
You know he's jealous of. And so I'm kind of thinking more what Prime is saying, like, this is all ratings, man. So first he falls, and we talk about him the entire draft, even though he doesn't get picked. We talk about him the next day, the whole day.
Right.
He gets picked. He's just as happy. Nobody's lost anything except him. He got taught a little lesson. And then the Ulbrich prank thing happens. More news, more excitement in the NFL, more drama.
Well, to be clear, he wasn't the only one. There were a lot of players apparently that got this prank call.
And in the
Abdul Carter got prank called. Carter got prank called too. Yeah.
Somebody got called after they were drafted and told they were being traded. So it's getting crazy.
It's ridiculous, and people need to really check. I mean, how ridiculous can people be? A 21-year-old kid, Jeff Ulbrich's son. At that age, I mean, you should really probably understand what the hell is right and wrong.
And you know what? Even more, Jason, it's a privacy issue. This is a big deal. If they're stealing phone numbers, kids, why not steal game plans, defensive strategies? I mean, let's go. Like,
but to lean into that a little bit, who's saying they're not probably now, you know, and then I guess they got fined pretty heavily. The Falcons got fined, and Ulbrich got fined too.
I think they got fined $250. Ulbrich got fined $100,000.
Right, and and Ulbrich said that he's going to split it with his son. He said, "I don't give a shit. Your own halfsies on this."
He should beat him with a bat on TV. Is what he should do.
Unbelievable, man.
All right, we won't do
crazy stuff. Yeah, too bad stuff like that happened. Shedeur thought he was going a lot earlier than he did, and he probably should have.
A different time.
He'll have his opportunity to prove that maybe he should have been that pick, man. You know, you never know. We say what's up to Under the Helmet, and of course, McNiner's in the house. What's up, McNiner? His thing on his show over there.
Hey guys, if you remember, McNiner picked Alfred Collins and Jordan James for his draft.
How about that? Oh, nice job. I love it.
I actually got Alfred, not in our draft, but one of my mocks that I did, I had Alfred Collins as well, and I had Curtis Rourke. So I actually got two guys as well.
McNiner makes sense saying, I'm going to grade this draft, in the 2027 season. I'm going dyslexic over here.
Makes sense.
And that does make sense. I mean, you do need time because right now we're looking at names mostly that we don't know. We don't know all these guys, and they're just names that went and picked 123 or picked 176 or whatever it is. So when we look at this, we're looking to see, did teams fill their needs, obviously, because we don't know how good these players are going to be yet. I mean,
they haven't taken a single snap.
Yeah, the Rams didn't even have a pick until pick 46, so it's going to be tough for them to make the list. But either way, I definitely want to get into it with you guys. But a few more things real quick. The Travis Hunter situation, the Jags gave up a lot. Cleveland, I think, did a good job getting what they got for it. And again, we're going to talk more about the A grades in the draft and the D grades and whatever. But it sounds to me like they're going to make Travis Hunter primarily a wide receiver, which to me, I don't think so, man. Again, I'm going corner, but I keep hearing, oh, he should be more of a nickelback corner or a slot corner or this and that. Well, if he's such a great player, two-way player, and again, corner is so much more valuable than wide receiver, I think, in my opinion. A lot of us would agree if you can have a shutdown corner. But now I'm hearing he's not a shutdown corner all of a sudden.
No, now he's not a good corner, right?
Well, what gives? I don't understand. Well, it doesn't make any sense to me. So he's this great athlete, and the Jags gave up a lot, Kenny, but if they're not going to use him on defense, to me, I think that's a regrettable waste.
I don't like it. I thought it was a terrible trade. It was unnecessary. I think the Jags should have stayed put. There's no reason to give up any draft capital. You're not a good team either. You don't have the luxury of giving away first-round picks to move up 3 spots when you're still going to get an elite top 10 player in this draft. It doesn't make any sense. So I never liked the trade. Also, a lot of talk about when is he going to be working with the defense? When is he going to be working with the offense? I want him on this day. I want him on this day. This kid is going to be stretched like Napoleon tried to stretch his reign all over the world. It's not going to work. And that's why a guy like Deion Sanders was special. And that's why he worked with Trav. Travis and Deion together was good because Deion could make that shit work. Can one of the head coaches in the NFL do that? I don't know.
But I think
the guy, Liam Cohen, who I love, I don't think he's going to be able to do it, man.
No, I think when you look at overall, I think Deion was such a transcendent athlete. I think you could put him at left tackle, and he probably would have found a way to make it work.
Yeah.
The thing that bothers me and worries me the most, hey there, kitty cat.
Okay.
Look at that guy. Hey. What's
He's
this
a
guy's name?
fan for 17 years, this guy.
What's this guy's name over here?
This one's Finn. I have another one called Harrison Sachs, but this is Finn.
How you doing,
They're
Phil?
both the same color.
What a crazy contrast of names. Harrison, Sachs, and Finn. Like, one's got a full name with like a birth certificate.
Well,
the other,
one of
Right.
my
Social
girlfriend
security
is
number,
one
he's
of
got
the-
fingerprints and hand ID, all that. But I think the biggest problem I think the Jags are going to face if is how he splits the rooms. You know, because you go into Sundays and he's got to fit the game plan. He's got to sit in the wide receiver room. He's got to sit in the defensive backs room. Are the coaches going to be patient enough with what little time they're going to have with him? Or is it going to be a week-to-week thing? You know, do you focus more on the offense one week depending on who the opponent is? Or do you just strictly, you know, just try to keep going with the flow and maybe, you know, a half hour here with the DBs, half hour here with the receivers, or however they, you know, they allot their time, you know, with their
Sounds sketchy.
position group.
It's tough. It's going to be tough.
It is. And then you already look, you know, they got you know, Brian Thomas Jr., I think is probably their undisputed number one.
Absolutely.
So it's not like Travis Hunter's coming in with the pressure of having to be that number one guy. So I think that particular variable, I think, gives Jacksonville a little bit more flexibility because you do already have a number one. He could be a good guy in the slot, kind of like a St. Brown kind of guy, kind of like a Puka Nacua or a Cooper Kupp type guy. But my thing is that on defense, I think he'll probably struggle the most on defense initially, just because of getting used to the size and the physicality and the routes, because they're more complex routes in the NFL than what he was facing in college.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. He's going to act right. And he was great. The kid is a great player. He's a generational talent. We're not debating that. What we're debating is what should he be doing on the field? Should he be more on defense and get those 15 to 20 snaps on offense? Again, as he's young and a rookie, do what you can with him, all right? So get the most out of him that you can, because you did give up a lot to go get him. So you know what? You better use him on both sides of the ball.
Jason, did you think it was worth doing that trade?
No, not for Jacksonville. For another team, maybe. Yeah, but not for this team. They're nowhere near anything. I mean, if anything, they're regressing. We don't know if Trevor Lawrence is really a franchise quarterback, because he hasn't done anything to really prove that yet in the, 3-4 years that he's been in the league. I'm sorry. Just haven't seen it. And it's not like they're a powerhouse everywhere else. They have a few good, decent guys on defense with Walker and Josh Hines, but it really ends there. So I think that they should have maybe beefed up their defense a little bit more, because that's what got them hurt in games last year. So no, and Jacksonville did not have, I'll tell you right now, they're one of my teams that did not have a good draft, in my opinion.
And for me as well, sir.
Yeah, they did not do well. I don't
And
like
even in their draft, they got one wide receiver.
Yeah,
right? One guy.
It was a bad draft, in my opinion. It really was.
Crazy.
Before we get to all these draft grades, one more thing. Pittsburgh Steelers right now, they have an 8.5 win total. That's with Mason Rudolph as their quarterback. Is Mason Rudolph going to be their quarterback prime? If not him, is it Cousins? Is it Aaron Rodgers? And do you think that Tomlin keeps the streak going of being 500 or better?
I think this year, outside of last year, a lot of people thought that the streak was going to end. I think this year might be his most difficult year, his biggest challenge to keep that streak going, simply because your quarterback right now is a mystery. I did hear late last week and going into this week that Kirk Cousins was a possibility.
Yeah,
you guys know that I thought that Cousins was going to end up with Stefanski back in Cleveland. That may not be the case. And that also depends, Jason, on when that move is made. You know, I know we talked a little bit about how that, you know, Cousins might just wait until later in the season to kind of see how things are going. With Mason Rudolph, if they win 8 games with Mason Rudolph, I would be totally shocked.
Yeah, I would be shocked as well.
Would that be enough for Tomlin to actually keep his job? I mean, they got to give him something now. I mean, if you go out and get a DK Metcalf and you have Pickens, obviously, do something with it. I mean, you got to be able to throw the ball. I don't know how they're going to run the ball this year. I mean, that one's still, I'm trying to figure out who they're going to have some sort of diamond in the rough over there. It can't be old Jaylen Warren, you know. So I struggle to think what exactly Pittsburgh is going to do. And it's just, I mean, they picked up a running back. So Caleb Johnson is the guy they picked up in the second round. If he can be something on offense much better than what Najee Harris was in his rookie year, then I say bravo, great job. If not, then I'm not so sure. But that's who they drafted in the second round. So Pittsburgh, again, the big thing with them is they need a quarterback, because they do have a good team. They have a great coach. They have a tough division, no doubt, but a winnable one at that, because they're always around in the end. So we'll see what Pittsburgh does.
Let me ask you this, though, guys. How if you're Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, how long do you keep playing this waiting game for Aaron Rodgers? I mean, because now you're starting to get into OTAs,
I don't know that they're waiting
the
for
training camp. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is your end game, don't you think that move should be made probably within the next week or so before you really start getting into the meat of your offseason, your OTAs, your training camps and all that?
I mean, I don't know what they're waiting.
Go ahead, Kenny. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say I don't know what they're waiting for. Real quick, and then you can go. They stamped the 99 cents. He stamped 99 cents on himself. He's $10 million. Why isn't every team calling him?
How about that?
Because they don't like him.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, that's kind of like the bottom line. He's just not one of the most likable guys in the league. Howie, our Bears, what's up?
What is up? And under the helmet saying over here that the Steelers always had their running back. It's been Tyler Warren all along, but no one has seen it. So, he knows what he's saying over here. And he's been saying let Najee go for a while. Yeah, Najee Harris, he didn't do it. I don't care that he got 1,000 yards every year. All you got to do is rush for 56 yards.
We talked about that. Yeah, exactly.
They gave him the ball 30 times a game, so I expect him to rush for over.
But at least he
yards.
was something, though. He was something, and now, right now, not only is your quarterback position a question mark, like you said, Jay, now your running back position is also a question mark. So Pittsburgh's got some, you got two good receivers, you got Freiermuth at tight end, you got a decent offensive line, but now it's like two of the most important positions, including the most important position going into the season. They're question marks right now.
Yeah, there's a lot. The Steelers had, again, decent draft over there for them. We'll see what they can do. Harry our Bears, 49ers had 5 good picks. CJ West, real deal steal in round 4. I think the 49ers will come up as we talk over here because we do have 2 49er fans on the panel. So obviously it's going to happen. But let's give out some grades, man. Guys, as I was going through this, I found that a lot of teams hit on a lot of their needs. Now, again, are these players going to hit? We don't know. Time will tell. And there's still a lot of free agent drafting signings going on right now. We're going to hear more names and players. There's this dude, I forgot his name, but he's like 597 pounds, and they signed him.
Desmond Watson?
That's it, Desmond Watson. Yeah, Desmond Watson, Florida. Yeah.
570.
Was he signed to UDFA?
Like 464, so he was huge.
I think
Tremendous.
he was UDFA, right?
What's that?
Was he UDFA? Was he undrafted, or did he get picked?
Yeah, he was undrafted.
He was undrafted.
And then he lost like 30 pounds in like a day and a half. I don't know.
He'll lose another 70 pounds at least.
Just stay healthy. Don't kill yourself, God forbid. Just stay healthy.
He'll play like 7 snaps a game until he gets into.
You just got to switch
from 400.
From ground beef and bacon to chicken and turkey. That's all. You'll be fine, big man.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so I found that I was giving out a lot of A grades, more than I thought. I think a lot of teams, like I said, really hit on their stuff. I want to hear from what you guys got. We're going to do maybe our top 5 best and worst. We're going to go through it, see how it kind of flows and everything. But, Eddie, why don't you give me one that you got off the top of your head, one of your better ones.
I'll give you one right now. It's the only team that had a good draft, in my opinion, in the AFC East, and it was the Bills. I thought they absolutely murdered it.
Yeah.
Hairston from UNC, I think it is. He's the fastest cornerback in this draft. They needed that. Not only did they get Maxwell Hairston, they also got Jordan Hancock, a cornerback. Dorian Strong, who I also like, is another cornerback. They got Deion Walker, their defensive tackle, defensive end, and they got T.J. Sanders, defensive tackle. I think he's a Gamecock, South Carolina, and they got
Caden Prather from Maryland
as a wide receiver, which I'm glad they didn't get wide receiver crazy. I was afraid they would do that. They also got Chase Lunt, and he's a pretty good late round offensive lineman who I really liked. He was always there. I was trying to get him in my top 10, couldn't get him in. And then they also picked up Jackson Hall as a tight end, who was, in my opinion, one of the better tight ends to get in that draft, late round at least.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I like Jackson Hall. I started looking at him late, but he went, 173 overall. I think the Bills, I would probably give the Bills probably an A minus as well. They had 9 picks, and they went defense heavy. They really did, and I think the more the Bills are starting to realize that, Sean McDermott is a defensive coach, they got to figure out a way, man, to get past that Patrick Mahomes thing, or this is not going to end well when we start looking at legacy and we start looking at 3-4 years from now. We start talking about Josh Allen and he'll end up being one of those 30 for 30 what ifs. And I think Buffalo right now, they know that the window is not necessarily closing, but they're trying to keep up with the Chiefs defensively, which a lot of teams are. We'll probably get to that later on in the show. I know we talked about Denver last week and what they do, trying to focus on defense, but it's going to be very interesting to see, first of all, how many of these guys actually make the squad. And I don't think, to kind of get to Jason's point earlier, there's a lot of teams here that did really well in the draft, and one of my A's will probably surprise you. But when I look over who Buffalo picked, to kind of piggyback off of Kenny, I think they really getting Maxwell Hairston was kind of like almost a steal. Getting him in the first round when they did.
Mark.
There was a lot of people had him graded like early second, late second, but Buffalo saw something in him. They know they have to. Everything I think Buffalo's doing right now is focused on beating the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right. And we know that Buffalo can score with them toe-to-toe, but the problem is that Buffalo can't stop them in key situations. Patrick Mahomes, he's Patrick Mahomes, so he's going to usually get the job done, but you've got to find a way to stop him, and that is it. That's the kryptonite. That's the bottom line. You got to get past the Chiefs. We'll see how they do this year. It's going to be real interesting when we actually get into starting to pick our players. I can't wait.
Real quick, we also talked about that. They picked late in the first round, so they didn't think he would be there late in the second round. If they wanted that guy, they went and they made sure they got him. So I think it's a good idea.
Under the helmet, like in the draft, yes. So he likes the Bills. All right, let me give you one of mine real quick. I thought the Arizona Cardinals really hit it, especially with their first two picks. They got Walter Nolan and then Will Johnson, who fell real far. So if Will Johnson is healthy, I thought that was a huge need for Arizona. I don't want to go through every pick, but Jordan Birch out of Oregon. That's for you, Prime. I know you love your Oregon players over there. And then, they concentrated on defense with the linebacker and Cody Simon and Denzel Burke and cornerback. So I like what Arizona did. You got to play defense in that division. They went defense heavy. We know that they can score points. Now, they can be hot and cold. They can be on and off Arizona. They go as Kyler goes on offense. All right. We'll see how good they do if they pick up anybody, if some kids emerge this year. But from a defensive standpoint, I think Arizona did what they had to do, fellas.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I think Arizona is probably one of the most polarizing teams in the league when you start talking about why aren't they better than what they are. They got a good quarterback. They usually have pretty decent receivers. Their running game is usually okay. Offensive line is usually pretty solid. And then you look and, you look up and they're under 500. Or they have these late season, mid-season stumbles where they lose 3-4 games in a row to teams that they probably have absolutely no business losing to. But to go defensive heavy, they got two DBs, in Johnson and Denzel Burke, couple Big Ten guys.
Very nice.
I think that's going to help them immediately. And Howie brings up, that's what I was just going to say, you also bring in Josh Sweat. So you have another pass rusher to go along with the rest of that defensive line, which I think is probably one of the more underrated defensive lines in the league. And I just sit back and I look at Arizona. It's like, why aren't they better than what they are, guys? I don't know. We go through this every year. Is this going to be the year that Kyler finally breaks through and, just makes the playoffs, let alone, having a deep run or being a contender? But I do like what they did with their draft. I gave them a B for their draft. I think, the most interesting, we talk about Will Johnson and his fall. A lot of people, the injury concerns, but as Kenny talks about so much, he's playing on grass now, so you don't have to worry about the turf toe. He's in the warmth and the dry heat, if you will, of being in Phoenix.
It's very helpful.
That's very helpful, especially when you do get injured when it comes to rehab, stuff like that. So I like what the Cardinals did. I'm just looking, they're probably going to be one of my top 5 teams to watch, just from a standpoint of, is this going to be the year that they actually get into the playoffs? But in that division with the Niners and the Rams, it's going to be very tough. So they'll probably, at best, they can hope to be as a wild card.
This is a big year for Arizona with their coach Jonathan Gannon and making improvements. If they don't necessarily get to the playoffs but have a 9-8, maybe 10-7 record, then I think that they're headed in the right direction. That's something that they need to do. Howie doesn't love that Denzel Burke pick, cornerback out of Ohio State that I was talking about for Arizona.
Yeah, you know what? I'm with you, Jason. Like you said before, there was a lot of people who did well in this draft because it was such a deep draft. I thought everyone should have done well. So if you didn't, I think you really blew it. Arizona, great picks. Walter Nolan and Will Johnson. You had only, 7 picks? They pick up Nolan, Johnson, Birch, who I loved also, Cody Simon, who I talked about all the last 3 months, one of the people I loved at linebacker. And they also picked up Josh Fryer, right tackle from Ohio State as well. He's very good, and he was undrafted. So, I mean, I know that's not part of the draft, but good for them. They got to do something.
Steve-O coming and comparing people to trash is sad. I love it.
Thanks for the props. One of my
Prime, give us one of yours, bro.
One of my A's, actually, and it's going to probably surprise some people, is the Cleveland Browns.
No, I'm with you.
I like what Cleveland did. You get Mason Graham, you get Schwesinger, you get Judkins, you get my guy Harold Fannin, Mr. 106 catches last year out of Bowling Green. I'm telling you, with him and David Njoku, who they still have, Dylan Gabriel. I was kind of a little bit perplexed about that pick. I think, and I love my Oregon QBs, but I think he's probably not the worst of the bunch. But I'm worried about his size. And I really don't think he'll have much of an impact. I think he might be a career backup. He might be a spot starter. But you get Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee, to beef up your running game. You addressed your needs on defense. You actually went out and got 2 running backs. You got probably the 4th or 5th best tight end in the entire draft, depending on where you had Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. If that guy went to Penn State or Michigan or even somewhere like South Carolina, we'd be all over that guy right now. So I think a lot of times these guys are victims of the school that they went to. We'll talk about, Mr. Green later on. But yeah, I think I gave them actually an A-, and then to bottom it all out, you get Shador at the end there in the 5th round, who probably end up being the starter before long. I think Cleveland, for all the things that we give them shit about, I think Cleveland really, really did well in this draft.
Yep, I like that also, man. I'm with you on Cleveland, and I think, again, getting Shador Sanders as late as they did, if he turns out to be what Mel Kiper thinks he is, the number 1 player in this entire draft, can you imagine that? So there will be a quarterback battle. Kenny Pickett got released from Cleveland today. You got Joe Flacco in the house, and of course, you can't keep 75 quarterbacks. So we'll see who they do get rid of. But I think that Shador Sanders will be on the team. I think he makes it. Kenny, give us another one of yours.
All right. Well, I liked the Browns draft, but the reason they didn't get my A+ grade in this division is because someone else knocked it out of the park big time, and it was Baltimore.
Yes, they did. Yeah. Yes.
Talk about rigged football. Why the hell is Malaki Starks and Mike Green falling to the Ravens? This is absurd.
I
this
agree.
should never happen. This
Conspiracy.
is rigged football at its finest.
It's a conspiracy.
They also picked up Eddie
drafters.
Jones Jr., a very quality offensive lineman. Teddy Buchanan, who the Niners had their eye on at linebacker. Carson Vinson, a very late round, solid offensive lineman.
You know what I like, Kenny? You know what I like most? They drafted a kicker to finally replace Justin Tucker because his days are over.
Yeah.
That man's leg is like falling off over here.
Yeah, Tyler Loop. Tyler Loop's a good kicker too. If you look at his stats, he's a really good
beyond
kicker.
Beyond that, they got, this is at the end of the draft, they get themselves Aeneas Peebles, Virginia Tech, defensive lineman, awesome stud, Robert Longerbeam from Rutgers, a cornerback, and then this is undrafted, so it's not part of why, but Jay Higgins, linebacker, undrafted. Jay Higgins, I would have taken in the 5th round. And so this was a knock it out of the park draft. I think this is why football is rigged. Baltimore might be in the Super Bowl this year.
Hey, oh man, look, that's where they.
Can you imagine Super Bowl Eagles Ravens? Can you imagine?
Oh, I like it. I think that Prime likes Lions Ravens a little bit better right there.
Absolutely.
I think they're keeping the Lions out of the Super Bowl.
Or Giants Ravens, but yeah, that's
well, let's not get crazy, man. Let's try to live like reality over here. Let's not go to fantasy islands.
Let's answer one prayer at a time here. I'm not gonna ask God for too much.
Hey, you know who I think had a pretty good draft, actually? The Dallas Cowboys. They did pretty good. They got Tyler Booker, and then they got Donovan Arezaraku from Boston College. Those 2 first-rounders. And some people said Siobhan Revell, Jr., actually, from East Carolina, the cornerback, actually could have been even a higher pick. They got Jaden Blue, another running back. They had to do it because they're still trying to find that run game. But, again, building on the offensive line a little bit with that kid Cornelius out of Oregon. They drafted Shamar James, another linebacker, and then the other running back, it's Phil Maffa, I believe, out of Clemson. I think I got that right.
Very good running back.
Yeah, so I think they address some needs, the Cowboys, right there, and they really have to. I mean, they're in trouble in their own division because everybody's getting better right now. What do you think about the Cowboys? Do you think they did all right in this one?
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, I think, and it's kind of, again, it's kind of like we talked about with Cleveland. You really don't expect the Cowboys to do smart things. But I think they went through this draft very calculated. They went through, they saw what they needed. And I think this is the year I think they're trying to dissuade a lot of the Jerry Jones haters, a lot of the people that think the Cowboys just can't do anything right. I love their draft. I gave them A-, B+ there. But overall, I think they're still going to have a tough time. I still think they need another receiver to go along with CeeDee Lamb. Somebody, I know, the tight end position is a little iffy right now, but I think overall, when you look at who they drafted, and Jason kind of ran them down, I think that they had a very smart draft. It's not an overwhelming draft. It's not a draft that's going to all of a sudden put them in a Super Bowl. But I think when you look at who they picked, they got some guys that some other teams coveted. And, Howie R. Bear says the Cowboys are tanking for the number 1 pick. It would probably be Arch Manning going into next season, but
right now it is.
But yeah, I think Dallas addressed their needs. It was a very smart, not overwhelming, but it was a smart enough draft for them to at least be respectable and to kind of get people to stop talking about them in such a negative light as we go into the start of this upcoming season.
Yeah, it's those first 3 picks that I really like. The offensive line going with Booker. You put him on the other side of Tyler Smith, excuse me, and then Donovan Resurrecu, again, could have gone in the first round. And then cornerback, Siobhan Ravel. They needed another cornerback really badly. So I'm pretty I'm not happy at all because I freaking hate the Cowboys, but they should be happy. All right, Prime, give us one of yours.
Actually, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say the outside of the one reach, I like what the Giants did.
I did too.
They only had 7 picks. They addressed the need with Abdul Carter. I think giving up what they gave up, and we talked about it the night of the draft, giving up multiple picks to get back into the first round to get Jackson Dart, but they see something there. They see, a lot of, and we all talked about it, how he moved up a lot of people's draft boards. So it's not a surprise that he went in the first round. It's just a surprise that somebody traded back into the first round and gave up what they gave up to get him. I like the Cam Scatterbo pick. I like Marcus Embo. I know that's one of Kenny's guys there out of Purdue. I think Thomas Fadone II out of Nebraska, Big Ten guy. I think he's going to be a sleeper. I think he's really going to help that offense. He's going to be a security blanket for either Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, or Jackson Dart, whoever they end up at quarterback. And Corey Black out of Oklahoma State, I think, is probably going to be one of the more surprises of this draft. I gave the Giants overall an A- simply because they didn't get a ton of picks. They gave up Jackson Dart. Gave up a lot of picks, to get Jackson Dart. That's probably what stopped me from giving them A+. I'm being a little bit biased here, but they did address their needs. Getting Darius Alexander out of Toledo, I think he's, you put him next to Dexter Lawrence, the veteran. I think he can only get better. Now you're looking at a potential defensive line of Alexander and Lawrence in the middle with Abdul Carter and Thibodeau and Brian Burns out there. I'm telling you, man, I'm liking what the Giants are going back to what made them successful with the Super Bowls during the Eli era, and that's beefing up that defensive line, scoring 20 and a half points a game if that's what it's going to take. But I have them actually over under. I think the over under we talked about was
5.5.
Yeah, 5.5. If you're smart out there, Howie and Steve Supremo and all under the helmet, take the over on that one because I already put my chips on that one.
Yeah. And
real quick, because they're talking about Tampa Bay is not one of my teams that I'm picking that won this draft or anything, but I do want to say they were talking about Tampa Bay in the chat. They took Emeka Egbuka first, knowing, and we talked about how many weapons they already had there in Tampa, but they also went back at the end of the draft and got Tez Johnson, wide receiver, who is no slouch. And then undrafted, they picked up Shiloh, Jake Majors, who was ranked number 1 center in this draft for a while, Will Shepard, wide receiver, Colorado. And so they got 3 wide receivers combined after UDFAs.
Well, Kenny, to add on to that, and the reason being why they do that, Godwin is always getting hurt, and Mike Evans gets hurt.
And that's
and they're older. They're older. A little bit long in the tooth.
Yeah.
I still
not
think,
a bad idea at all. No, you're right. I mean,
and I still think Mike
you don't
Evans.
always play your first year. So.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. And I still think even without Liam Cohen, I still think Tampa Bay. I love Mike Evans. I think he's probably one of my top 2 or 3 favorite receivers in the league, just because of what he brings to the table. I was always hoping he'd either be a Giant or a Lion somewhere down the line, but Tampa Bay just keeps figuring out a way to keep him there, which is fine. But I still think, we've all been kind of high on Baker Mayfield, and I know Kenny is Liam Cohen. Kenny I'm not sure if you said that they might lose a step without Liam Cohen. I think when you still have Baker and you still have those guys, Bucky Irving in that offense, they actually did have a pretty solid draft. I had them at a B+. But potentially, if we go back and do this, halfway through the season, that could probably go up to an A+, A- easily, because Tampa Bay, I think, is going to win that division hands down, and it's going to be very interesting to see how all this meshes as we start next year. I can't wait, guys, for the season to start, man. I'm itching.
I'm going crazy already.
And then we have fantasy football appetizer. Remember?
That's right.
That's right. It's gonna
I
come.
hate to jump around, but just real quick, let me say the Giants. I loved what they did. Again, this is their second year slaying this draft. I didn't have them as the best team in this division that slayed the draft, but they were very good. Also, UDFA, O'Donnell Fortune, very good cornerback who they got undrafted, who will help you in the next 2-3 years, I think.
We'll see. Who knows? Maybe Scatterboot turns out to be a really good NFL player.
Oh,
He wasn't
him and
projected to be.
Tracy are going to be fantastic.
Yeah, he just might be. It's very interesting with the Giants. All right, go for that over 5.5. I like that. Let's do one more before we get to our D and C grades over here. I can pick from quite a few, but you guys have said ones that I've already written down. But Kenny, you're up. But give us another one of yours.
All right, I think you both have these guys on there too. I hate to steal it again, but Philadelphia again.
Yes,
this is rigged football. They're setting up a Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Ravens this year. They take the best linebacker, arguably, falls to them in the draft. He had a little injury. There's no reason to have this. And I called that he would fall, but not to the Eagles. I had him going to the Rams. They traded their pick away. But anyway, Jahad Campbell, linebacker. Andrew Makuba, safety. An incredible safety, probably the third best safety in this draft. They go out, they get Mac McWilliams from UCF, who's a very good cornerback. Smael Mondon Jr., linebacker. They hit him in the eye during the combine. I think it turned a couple people off. Big mistake. My man is going to be great. Cameron Williams, offensive line. And then they come back with their last damn pick and get Antoine Powell-Ryland, Virginia Tech. Incredible defensive lineman. They don't need all that stuff, man. This ain't fair. Then they go back UDFA and pick up Holland Pierce from Rutgers. That's the next biggest guy in the draft, next to Desmond Watson. This guy is a beast. Check him out. Holland Pierce, left tackle, Rutgers. He was an animal. They slayed this draft. Good luck in the East. I'm sorry. Prime time.
Yeah, Eagles did it again, Prime.
Yeah, well, and Howie real quick was talking about the Giants, the picks from last year when they had Newbin and Neighbors and Tracy. They had some solid, but we talked about it, I think, the night of the draft. Anything that the Eagles picked was a luxury pick. And then to go back and be able to slay the draft the way that they did, I gave them an A as well.
They also traded back a couple times, just real quick. Go ahead.
What's that?
They also traded back a bunch of times, picked up more picks.
Yeah. And it is, Howie Roseman is just right now, man, he's killing it. Everything that guy does, man, just turns to gold. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles are in the Super Bowl again. It is almost done. It's almost comical that a team can go from losing 2 coordinators, going back to the Super Bowl, winning a Super Bowl, nailing draft after draft after draft, and just getting a gluttony of players, to where now they can just sit back and just kind of like a Madden, kind of almost like a fantasy team potentially, and just they got depth. They got great players at their starting positions. They've beefed up every possible position that they can. They got a decent quarterback. I would like to see them potentially upgrade the wide receiver position. Maybe with a bit young, maybe with some size. You know, Devontae Smith is a little dude. He's pretty good, but I'd like to see them maybe go back to, you know, maybe getting some bigger receivers, but that's just me. I'm just partial to bigger receivers. But yeah, I gave Philadelphia an A, man. I'm really impressed. I think I gave them an A before the draft even started, just in my head, because I knew Howie Roseman would just nail it.
Yeah, they got great scouts, great front office. I gave him an A as well. They were on my list. And Under the Helmet podcast, for me, just nailed it. Maybe my favorite draft, even though it's not my favorite team at all because they play in the same division, that would be the Seattle Seahawks. Boy, did they nail it. Listen to these first 4 picks. Gray Zabel can play anywhere on the offensive line. Nick Emenwari, arguably the best safety in this draft. Elijah Arroyo, tight end out of Miami, maybe 3rd or 4th best tight end in this draft. Then they get Jalen Milroe, because we know that Sam Darnold is not the future. Maybe this kid actually is. Again, they go back to wide receiver with Torrey Horton. They go back to offensive line with Bryce Cattable. They get Damian Martinez, another running back. Ricky White, another wide receiver.
Love Ricky White.
They did such a good job in this draft. It makes me sick. I'm so
Jason, and not only that, they go back UDFAs and pick up Jared Ivey, defensive end from Ole Miss, and then they go back and they get, no big deal, Zy Alexander, cornerback, LSU. Whatever,
Great
nobody
job.
liked them. Okay.
You know,
such an excellent secondary. There's no doubt. Under the Helmet was right on it, you know, with these guys with Woolen and Witherspoon and Julian Love, and now you can add these other guys into it. But Gray Zabel, Emenwari, and Arroyo in your first 3 picks, and then you get Jalen Milroe with the 4th. Oh my God, Seattle absolutely killed it, guys.
They did it.
Man,
They beefed up their offensive line too. Mason Richmond was actually highly rated in some people's mind, you know, some people's mock drafts, and for them to get him in the 7th round, you know, and then they got Robbie what's his
Oots,
name?
out.
Yeah,
Oots.
Robbie Oots out of tight end out of Alabama. Well, I saw him a couple times this year watching some Alabama games, and he's not jump off the page good, but he's got some good size. He's pretty athletic, but I love the Elijah Arroyo pick. I love Elijah Arroyo. I watched tape on him. I've watched a few Miami games because, you know, watching Cam Ward this year, man. And I'm telling you, Seattle, when I'm kind of looking, you know, we ran down what they picked. It's like, how does some of these guys fall? And I think we talked about it before the draft. It was such a deep draft for big people. And then you started having your runs on wide receivers and tight ends and things like that, man. And there's a lot of teams with a lot of that did really well in the draft. But as we'll get to shortly, there's some teams that kind of screwed the draft up too. And you'll probably be shocked at the team that I think probably messed the draft up the most.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I can't wait to hear that, actually. All right. Well, you got one more good one to give us, and then we'll get into some of the bad ones. So what else you got? Give us one more.
Actually, and this is going to sound crazy, but the New Orleans Saints, I kind of like what they did outside of maybe the Tyler Schaaf pick, or however the hell you want to pronounce his name.
Hey, he may start day one, man.
And that's why I kind of bumped them up to like the A- level. For me, they've made some really bad decisions, you know, as far as from a salary cap standpoint. But they did some things to beef up the draft, starting with Kelvin Banks Jr., you know, to get him to protect whoever you have at quarterback. I think Vernon Broughton out of Texas was I think he might be an above average kind of defender. He's a really, really good run stopper. He's also a pretty decent pass rusher as well.
He was slept on. Yeah, Vernon Broughton was definitely slept on.
You get you got a couple of linebackers. I'm looking at here. Fadil Diggs. That's who I was going at for Syracuse.
Very
Probably
good.
a top 10, maybe, depending on who you're,
Depends what your needs are.
As far as and I think a lot of the draft, there's a theme here, guys. It's depth, and when you rate in your draft, a lot of people rate their drafts ABC. This is actually the first year that I've done the letter grades, because what I've learned, and you guys probably know this as well, is that you get to the point where, are you mocking the draft with the letter grade based on where you thought these guys were going to fall and where they actually fell? Or are you giving your letter grade based on how you think that team's going to do with the players that they picked? And for some people, you know, for guys like us, it's probably a mix. But I know a lot of people give their letter grades and stuff. Just, Mel Kiper said this guy was going to fall here, so they were going to pick all these guys. They didn't, so I'm giving them a C+ instead of kind of doing the analysis and going in depth to kind of see. But if you really kind of break down the Saints draft, they did a lot better, I think, than a lot of people thought they would.
Hey, look, if they found their franchise quarterback in the second round, then they did a great job. There's no doubt about it. So let's see if that actually comes to fruition.
Hey, Jason, I know we want to move on to the bad teams because I think that won't take as long. Do you mind if we talk about a couple more teams that I think nailed this draft?
Go for it, Kenny.
Okay, real quick. First of all, the NFC West, I thought did the AFC West, I thought did a fantastic job. Again, rigged football. Kansas City, arguably the best offensive tackle in the draft, falls to them in Josh Simmons. Then they go Omar Norman-Lott, one of the best defensive tackle prospects. Ashton Gelati, DE, sleeper for some. I knew him. A lot of people knew him. Niners definitely liked him. They get Noel Williams. They get Jalen Royals with the pick they traded, which is incredible. Jeffrey Bassa, Oregon linebacker. Brashard Smith, SMU Mustangs running back. Then in UDFA, they get Elijah Badger, wide receiver, and Jake Brinnenstuhl, tight end from Tennessee. That is disgusting. No, that is not allowed. Why is this happening? Then you got, real quick, Denver. What the hell? They get Jahdae Barron to go next to Patrick Surtain Jr. in the cornerback. That's insane. RJ
Yeah,
Harvey,
but the rest of their draft sucked. The rest of Denver's draft sucked.
RJ Harvey, they definitely reached on the Pat Bryant. They reached on the Q Robinson. So, like, I didn't have them nailing this draft. No. I had Kansas City, though, and I had Vegas, though. You guys didn't like what Vegas did?
Yeah, I actually had them I had them A- as well.
Yeah,
I had about 8 teams or so that had like A- type.
Yeah, that's
grades.
what I had. 8 good teams and then 5 bad teams.
Yeah, I struggled to come up with, again, really bad. I'm talking like D grades.
It was hard.
There was really, honestly, only 4 or 5. I mean, one of them to me, and Prime, you're not going to like this. I don't think the Lions did good.
That was my tease there.
You know what?
Exactly.
You know what?
I hate what they did with the draft.
Since you know the team better than I do, I got, again, I really don't like what they did. I think maybe they should have concentrated on a few more things. Yeah, Kenny's got it up also.
I had it on there too. A big old like Ghostbusters sign on.
Yeah, the Lions got a C- for me, man. I mean, Tyreek Williams, I think that was even a reach in the first round, and then you go down the list.
They traded in front of us to take him from us, just so you know.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting. I don't know, Prime. I give him a C-, the Lions. I don't like what they did.
Yeah, I gave them a C as well. Brad Holmes was on local radio here, and Brad Holmes, the thing, when you listen to him talk, when he is in control of the interview and when he's talking about something that he wants to talk about, he's very succinct, he's very clear and concise. But then when you start peppering him with because they were talking about the edge rusher situation, it's like you need somebody to go out, alongside of Aiden, and then he gives these long-winded rationale as to why they didn't pick an edge rusher. Well, you guys think, this is what we should do. And then he started getting into how many other teams in the league have 2 elite pass rushers. Well, I can think of a couple off the top of my head. It doesn't necessarily have to be defensive ends in the traditional sense, but the fact that you waited until, late in the game, the 6th round to go get somebody out of Boise State, to me was totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
Tyreek Williams was probably the best pick in the draft. People are high on Isaac Tesla. I think because he's got, Michigan ties and things like that. But to go, Miles Frazier was a decent pick, but you probably could have got him later. The Tate Ratledge pick, you picked him. That was your 2nd round pick, really. You go out and you get Dominic Lovett from Georgia. Not sold on him at all. Dan Jackson out of Georgia, I think you just picked him because you were hoping you can get some of that Georgia luck to rub off on the team. You're trading away assets. You wouldn't trade away assets to go out and get a Trey Hendrickson or a Max Crosby when they were available, or you're not going to probably bring back Zadarius Smith. When I just look at what the Lions needed and what they went out and got, I would have spent my first probably 3, maybe even 4 picks on the defensive line, simply because the defensive line, it was so deep in this draft. You could have went out and got a haul. You could have went out and got you 2 D tackles, a linebacker and a defensive end, or 2 DEs, a defensive tackle and a linebacker, and I think the fans here would have been a little bit more palpable. But yeah, Liam McNeil to a deal. They're really high on McNeil under the helmet. You're absolutely right, but the problem with that is that he can't stay healthy, and Liam McNeil probably won't be back until the end of October, early November. But the fans up here in Detroit, man, are absolutely slamming Brad Holmes for the way that they executed this draft, and I almost gave him a D. I really did. I was going between like a C and a D, but I stayed between like a C and a C minus. I absolutely hate what they did with the draft. Absolutely.
Tesla pick the head scratcher to me was the Isaac Tesla pick.
Yeah, that's what I say. And you move
in like the 7th round, right?
Yeah. He wasn't even. I don't even think he was high on any. I think he was like a top 40 or something, maybe top 50 on the wide receiver
top
board.
20, I had him.
So go figure. You didn't have to trade up to get him. He would have been there later on in the game. They were all over the place in this draft. It was almost like they were sitting there with a dartboard. And Brad Holmes is so stubborn. He wants to prove that he's the smartest guy in the room because he's hit on so many draft picks. But at the same time, every once in a while you have a draft like this. And Tyreek Williams might be the second coming of Aaron Darnold. We don't know. But the rest of the guys in this draft, you probably could have got the other 6 guys in this draft. You could have got them later. A couple of the guys, you probably could have got them UDFA.
Yeah, man, shit goes down like that sometimes. And they had been drafting really well up until this year, apparently, because they had really done a good job for a while. But, hey, you know what? Maybe they'll prove us wrong. And they say, you guys don't know shit. These players are awesome, and half of them ended up starters. Who knows? Kenny, I got another one for you. I want to see if you agree with this one or not.
Okay.
I despise what this team did in this draft, and they absolutely needed to hit on it, and they didn't. They tried with a couple of players by going on defense, but the Bengals, I'm sorry. They went ahead and reached for Shamar Stewart in the 1st round. Then you get Demetrius Knight, linebacker, in the 2nd. I didn't see a draft grade on him until like the 4th round, so I'm not really sure on that one. You go ahead and get an offensive lineman in Dylan Fairchild. I'm perfectly fine with that. Another linebacker in Barrett Carter. Now, they didn't have a lot of picks. I think they had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks. But they needed to make the most out of it, and in my opinion, they really didn't. That Shamar Stewart pick right off the bat told me a lot, all right? And something that it may have told me is that Trey Hendrickson might not be around because they still have not signed this guy to a deal. It is not done yet.
Long term, no, yeah.
No.
I'm with you. As you can see here, it's already set in stone. Bengals, I got the laughing emoji. 3 minuses. The one pick I liked was the one you didn't like, though. I actually had Demetrius Knight as my top 3 linebackers in this draft. Dylan Fairchild was an okay pick, but that's it. It was like, what are you doing?
They didn't do good.
They did a horrible job.
No, they did a bad job. They just did not hit on the players or the needs, in my opinion. And maybe Demetrius Knight Jr. turns out to be a really good player. I mean, that's certainly possible. It wasn't a good linebacker draft, so you know what? Maybe he is one of the better linebackers in the draft. We'll see.
And if you guys remember Shamar Stewart, when he came out there, he was like the only guy who wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you heard it up, Mike, but like Goodell, that's Goodell, right?
Goodell,
yeah.
He's like, are you happy? Okay? Is everything all right?
Yeah, I think the only solid pick the only pick that I really kind of tip my hat to that could potentially help this team long term. Shamar Stewart might end up being that guy, but I like the Dylan Fairchild pick. I think it gives them depth on that offensive line. It never hurts to give your quarterback more protection.
No doubt. They got Jalen.
Still kind of raw.
Miami.
He's still kind of raw. But I think he can. I think he'll be the one to help them. So I think maybe Fairchild and Stewart were probably the 2 best picks of the draft. And I'm looking at the rest of them. I gave them actually a C as well. And I was going to go lower, but I didn't want to be overly mean to those guys. I think Barrett Carter, Jalen Rivers out of Miami. I'm not sure about. I don't know too much about him, even though I watched some.
I'll tell you right now about him real quick, and then you can keep going. Jalen Rivers got his ass handed to him in the Senior Bowl weekend one-on-ones. The dude got trucked.
That's the only thing I heard about him in general was that, Kenny. So
yeah,
you hit that right on the head. But yeah, Cincinnati sucked. It's almost like there's a few of these teams that really studied and really did well, but then there's a lot of teams that like, look, man, let's just pick this shit and go home.
Yeah, I think he's the guard.
I hate to say it like that, but I think that's a lot of the stuff. That's what it seems like, man.
Yeah, sometimes it's right. Let's get out of here. It's getting late, guys. Come on, let's go get some Taco Bell. Let's hit the road. Jeez.
Right.
Penny, give us one of yours. I know you have a few written down over there, so why don't you give us one of yours?
Okay. Well, sadly, for teams that really needed to do a nice job, they just pooped the bed for me. Is like two teams that were in the same division. I'll talk about one. Maybe you guys have the other. Indianapolis. What the hell? What was that?
I wasn't impressed.
Just give your picks away if this is what you're going to do. Tyler Warren, everybody knew was coming. You're lucky he fell to you, and that's great. But that was it. Tio Maluoa, whatever, JT, I think he's from Ohio State. I have nothing bad to say about the guy, but okay, nothing special. After that, nothing. Riley Leonard, I do not like Riley Leonard, and I love Notre Dame.
It's a wasted pick. That is a waste of a pick drafting Riley
DJ
Leonard.
Giddens, I love, but he ain't gonna ever play with Jonathan Taylor there. Now, if Jonathan Taylor gets hurt, we might see DJ Giddens, and I love him. I just don't think he's gonna make much of an impact this year. The other picks were straight up head scratchers for me. So Indianapolis gets a meh for me.
I don't like Indy that much either. They really didn't do a good job. Again, Riley, it was a 6th-round pick, so I mean, you're not going to poo-poo it that much or whatever. But I think they should have done better with what they had. Another team, I don't really like what they did is Houston. I thought that a lot of people think that Houston had a good wide receiver. Yes,
that was my other one.
That's another one for you?
That was my other one, yeah.
All right, because Jaden Higgins, he's a good wide receiver, and they do need wide receiver help. They got Kirk and they got Nico Collins. So getting the third guy in there would help because you don't know what's going on with Tank Dell yet. But the rest of it, I mean, I think they should have gone way more offensive line heavy. They only drafted one offensive lineman in this entire draft, and C.J. Stroud is getting sacked all the time. I don't know what they were thinking. They went very much defensive in the middle. They got quarterback, but then they went running back. They went safety. Another quarterback, which I'm not understanding. Guys, I don't know what they did in this draft, man. But
after Prime talks about them, let me make fun of Houston before we end it. But go ahead, Prime.
Well, no, I agree with Jason 100%. The thing that kills me is that it's another one of those teams that were kind of like, Taco Bell, what's Stewie on Family Guy say, hey, Dairy Queen closes in 10 minutes. And they were ready to get out of there to draft another quarterback. They should have spent their entire draft, on offensive linemen.
Oh my God.
The problem that I have with Houston is that they have a good team. And if you're the general manager, you can't lose sight of the fact that your best players are always getting hurt. Your wide receivers, your couple guys on your defensive line. They didn't, to me, I don't, and I'm not in the room with these guys and I'm not a general manager, but I don't think that they really thought this through. I think they think they're better than what they are. I think they're like, okay, well, maybe we're just a player or two away from really making some serious noise here, but they're really not. They're really not that good. They're a 10-7, 11-6 team at best.
In their division?
In their division. So, and luckily for them, the division isn't all that great. You put them in a better division and they might be a 9-win football team. So I'm not 100% sold on what they did either. But there's a reason why I guess these guys are getting paid millions of dollars to be general managers. But this particular draft here, Houston did not nail this one by any stretch.
Here's what I want to say real quick, and then I'm sorry, Jason.
No, you're good. Go.
Houston totally effed this up, okay? Your biggest problem is your offensive line, so you skip it in the first round. Now, maybe there was nobody there for them, but Josh Simmons was there.
Yep.
Okay, so you don't get the Josh Simmons. Now you pass on him. You have to go with Ariante Ursary, who I like, but I don't love, and I don't even think he's a starter in his first year. You take, Jaden Higgins, wide receiver. Jalen Knoll, wide receiver. Jalen Smith, cornerback. Jalen Reed, safety. Okay, did you mess up? Did Texas, did the Dallas Cowboys curse you and you took their curse away? And you're making you go with what I'm sorry, but I do like to draft for needs. If the guy that I need that's there is decent, and so I think they just mixed up the first two picks. I like the Higgins and the Nolan a little because they're from the same team, so maybe there's a little chemistry there. But yeah, they blew this draft. So
yeah, Houston does have a decent front four, but they need help in other areas. I like Derek Stingley Jr. He can play, no doubt. So I hear you on that one, Howie. But
they also took my biggest sleeper in this entire draft, though, Jason, which was Elijah Huzzie from University of North Carolina, cornerback. He's a cornerback, and he also can return some punts. He's a very scrappy dude. He's a little guy. We'll see how he does. I hope he gets to make the team.
We shall see. I really only got one more team with a terrible grade. So, Prime, how about you give us one of yours?
Actually, and it pains me to say this because my boy is on this team, but I didn't like what Denver did.
Me either.
In this draft. I think you reached for Omarion Hampton. We talked about it as a potential, him being a potential first-round pick going to the Broncos, unless Genty fell that way. But
the Chargers took Omarion.
What's that?
The Chargers took Omarion Hampton.
Yeah,
that's what I meant. I'm sorry, the Chargers. I'm sorry. I'm like, I meant the Chargers.
Yeah.
I don't like what they did. The J-Marie Caldwell pick out of Oregon. I like him, but I don't like Trey Harris. I'm not a big fan of Keandre Lambert-Smith. Not a big fan of Branson Taylor out of Pittsburgh. I watched the backyard brawl with them in West Virginia, and he got his ass kicked that entire game. R.J. Mickens out of Clemson. I'm looking. It's position-wise, it's a very Harbaugh type draft. But when you look at the players, a lot of these, again, you probably could have got these guys. You could have got better value from them later on in the draft.
Well, yeah, but Prime, where's the protection? I mean, you get
that's what I was going to get to next, Jay.
Yeah.
The protection is, you got you got your boy Justin Herbert, who's another one of my Oregon guys. But you didn't pick. You picked what? No offensive lineman. You picked one offensive lineman. I'm sorry, and that was in the 6th round. That part right there is probably one of the most un-Jim Harbaugh-like things that you'll see because I thought they would have picked 2 or 3 offensive linemen going into this draft. I had them picking 3 offensive linemen going into this draft, and the fact that they only picked up 1, it looks like they were trying to build up their defense, but your defense was already pretty good.
Yeah.
So you need protection and you need weapons. And I think they dropped the ball, no pun intended. I think they dropped the ball on both of these.
Because they just signed Poona Ford, and he's a beast. That's a D guy right there. You got to protect your quarterback. I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You see a few teams really didn't do a good job. Like Kenny, I don't think Miami did a good job. I think Kenneth Grant, maybe a bit of a reach at D tackle at number 13.
He kind of was. I
thought it was kind of a reach. I mean, I thought they could have got a better player. I'm not going to go through it right now and waste everybody's time. But then again, you got Tua, who needs all the protection in the world because when he gets hit, it looks horrible. Looks like a rag doll. And they get one offensive lineman, Jonas Saviane. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but they get one offensive lineman. And then they really concentrated on defense, which is smart. And I like Jordan Phillips out of Maryland. I heard a good few things about him. They got Jason Marshall at cornerback. But I feel like the needs where they got in the secondary, that may be one place they did all right. But everywhere else was a big problem. And they needed to replace Javon Holland at safety. They get Dante Trader Jr. out of Maryland as well. But these are replacement players for a team that didn't make the playoffs last year. They needed to make a bigger splash. And Miami, if they were smarter, would have traded a couple of their later picks. 5th, they had a couple of 7ths to try to move up and get better players, and they just didn't.
Yeah, I agree. And Howie, getting back to the Chargers real quick, talks about Slater's contracts coming due, which is actually absolutely correct. Zion Johnson's a free agent next year, so again, it goes back to the fact that maybe Harbaugh's got his eyes on something, either free agency or he's waiting until next year's draft. But Miami probably was the most confusing team based on what they needed and opposed to what they actually picked. You got to protect Tua. Quinn Ewers.
Hey, you know what I will say though about Miami? I want to give them a little credit. UDFAs that they picked up. Theo Weiss Jr., 2nd wide receiver for Missouri. Not a terrible person to pick up undrafted. They also got Eugene Asante, linebacker. They got Jalen Conyers, tight end, and they got Addison West as a guard center.
These are all guys after the draft.
They effed up the draft, but they got some nice undrafted free agents.
Yeah, those are all free agent pickups.
The weather drew them there, not the team. The weather drew them there.
Yeah, I think Mike McDaniel, I think it's almost put up or shut up time for him.
They still do that in the Howie.
Have you heard rumors about this? Howie's saying Miami's supposed to be trading Ramsey and Tyreek. Now, Ramsey, I have heard. Tyreek has been a rumor out there, but I don't know if anybody's going to try to take on that contract.
I think he's just barking.
Yeah, I think he wants to stay in Miami. I did hear the Jalen Ramsey thing. I heard that the Giants were kicking the tires on that.
Falcons, Rams.
The
I
thing
heard.
about
Falcons,
Jalen
yeah.
Ramsey, Jalen Ramsey is such a good football player, but he's obviously got this horrible attitude because he can't stay in a locker room. He jumps from Seattle to Miami to Jacksonville. I mean, he's been on too many places for a guy that is that good of a player at safety. I don't get it.
Yeah, that kind of says
Can't get
something.
along with people.
How he says that this is probably Mike McDaniel's last year. I can see that happening.
Maybe.
I could see them pulling the trigger on it.
That's right. Darwin's right about that too. There's no friggin' taxes in
They
Florida.
got to watch out for New England now, man. New England's coming too. Be careful. Drake May. Shoot.
And Jay, if I can allude to that point for 1 second,
Yeah.
a lot of times the draft is not who you pick. It's the fact that you have to look at the teams around you. And this, I use this theory in the NBA a lot. If I'm a general manager, I'm looking, first of all, my division, and then I'm looking at the top like 7 or 8 teams. Who am I? If I pick this guy, and it's probably easier in the NBA because 1 or 2 guys can make a total difference. But if I get this guy, who does that make me better than? If I get this guy, who does that make me better than? And when I look at Miami and I see what New England did, and I see that New England still got salary cap money to play around with, and the best that I could do is what I did in this draft. I'm almost looking at Miami probably being 3rd in this division. I could easily see New England being the 2nd best team in this division based off of what they did during the offseason with free agency and in the draft. I could easily see this being McDaniel's last year and Miami not even they could be a 7-8 win team this year, guys.
Man, they may finish last in the division. It's very possible, depending on how Justin Fields plays. And New England, we think, is on the come up with Mike Vrabel. And, of course, Buffalo, we know, owns that division and probably will for another few years to come. So, yeah, there's another team. I got a couple more, but I want to hear if you guys had any more as we're $1:11 into the show. So maybe we'll just get a couple more in before we call it. Kenny, you have one you wanted to get in there?
Oh yeah, bro. The San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, I didn't
I
want to
wonder
bring
when
it
horrible-
you guys were going to bring them up.
Yeah.
I was hoping because I was going to.
Cut. And they got a laughing emoji from Kenny. That's embarrassing.
It was
I
bad.
feel bad because, what I understand is Michael Williams fell from, basically, I think we swapped, right? I think that the Niners should have gotten Banks. I think that the Saints should have gotten Mikel Williams. It just didn't go that way. They swapped, in my opinion. Something happened there. Alfred Collins, I loved. He was in my top 5 or maybe number 6 in my DTs, but I just thought it was around too early. Nick Martin is a monster. He only played 7 games last year, and that's why I think he was where he was. So Nick Martin wasn't really a terrible pick. But the Upton Stout, the Jordan Watkins, the Jordan James, I don't get that guy's never going to touch the ball. Marcus Siegel, these guys, they have upside. They're not bad players. It's just I feel like the Niners always pick players that you can get undrafted.
Kenny,
And so I love the CJ West pick, but that was
Kenny, answer me this, though. What are you doing not drafting an offensive lineman until the 7th round?
I've
What
been
is
trying
happening?
for months and months to get through to the fans, and maybe then the fans know somebody in the coaching staff, and they can say something. But no, it's never going to happen, dude. It's never going to happen.
I don't understand how you get the offensive line is so vital to the 49ers' success, our run game, our everything, and you wait until the 7th round until you take one? What
Dude,
are
you don't
doing?
understand how much time I spend in comment sections and chats with people being like, "You're a casual. You don't know what you're talking about. Then we don't need offensive line. We need to beef up this D." I'm like, we need to do both, man. We need
We
to
need
do
everything.
That's
People liking CJ West though.
And-
CJ West got an A
Yeah.
plus individually, A plus from me. CJ West.
Yeah, I like that pick, but going back up to Howie real quick, he said he was going to copy my. You can have that. I'll take
Even the
I'll
Ravens.
take $10 royalties every time you use that thought. But anyway,
Even the Ravens address their O line.
and I can't believe that John Lynch and the Niners, your guy just keeps botching these drafts. How does that happen? And then you have 10 picks in this draft?
11
picks in this draft, and you probably are only going to hit on maybe 3 of them if you're lucky.
Four
And-
or 5 if we're extremely lucky. They
Right.
did take
So
Tom Colby.
I'm at a loss. I already have, the Rams. I called the Rams winning that division anyway. So, the 49ers tanking this draft the way that they
if
did.
Stafford's healthy, it's over. It's a lot.
Yeah. But I can't believe I'm looking at this, and like you say, the lack of offensive linemen, the lack of, just all the players that you lost. I don't see anybody here on this list that I could see replacing or even coming close to replacing some of the guys that you guys lost.
Look, offensive line, defensive line, they only even got 3 guys to play on the defensive line. I thought they were going to stack up the interior. This is what the 49ers are about. Offensive line, defensive line, in the trenches, running the football, off play action. We can rush with 4 and get home, and we can drop 7 back. Shit, man, it ain't like that anymore. Things just ain't the same. And I don't know how Robert Saleh is going to do coaching these guys up, but he's got his hands, he's got his work cut out for him. He really does.
But you know what? They did one offensive tackle at the end of the draft who was very experienced. He's developed. He's a very solid offensive tackle, Connor Colby. Mm-hmm. They stole him, I think. They kind of stole him. I think that's why they picked him in the 7th and didn't go try and get him undrafted. I think that was a good reach. If that's a good, if there is such a thing as a good reach.
That's a good question. Under the helmet, how do you guys pass on Membo?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think.
Oh yeah, he means MBOW.
Yeah, not Met. Yeah, my bad. Yeah,
and I had a short.
Very similar.
His best friend not texting me, but commented on my short. He's like, "That's my boy." I'm like, "Yo, I'm so excited." I'm like, "Yo, I hope we get him." And then we're sitting there, and then he's like, "Man," he just kept passing on. And then you took him, which I thought was great.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this draft was, like you say, for as many teams that nailed it, there were a few teams that absolutely were just throwing baloney darts at the board and just whatever stuck.
Levi, that's another guy, Logan Brown from Kansas, who played with Pooney. Dude, it's right there. The chemistry has already been.
Yeah. Don't get it. I feel like the 49ers did not do their homework on this one. You know what's while I like that Seattle and Arizona in the NFC West. Mm-hmm. The 49ers and the Rams, to me, didn't do so well. Now, the Rams didn't have – yeah, the Rams did not have a lot of picks, so you have to take that into account. The first pick was at number 46 in the 2nd round, and it took Terrence Ferguson, tight end.
Pick up a pick. I mean, I love Josiah Stewart, and I don't mind Terrence Ferguson. I would be more happy about the Chris Paul Jr., but every damn team passed on him, so there's got to be something.
That's what you see. There's something to that, and I thought he was going to go higher also, so there is something to that. Josiah Stewart, I heard, he from Michigan, another guy on that defense. So they're really good. But getting a tight end with your first pick, Terrence Ferguson, I feel like they had more needs than that. But so the Rams, I didn't really like their draft, albeit they only had 6 picks. But I don't like what they did.
They did pick up a pick, so.
Yeah, right. And a lot of teams are doing that right now. Look, there's going to be 99 players, when you go into camp. It's going to get cut down to 53 at some point. So,
but if you're the Rams, you're in a win now mode. So get players to play this year.
Yeah. I didn't think they should have traded back. I think, and if they did trade back, maybe you do that for the quarterback of the future if you feel like there's somebody there. So I thought that was a bad move.
Do that in the 2nd round, man. Get your guys. You only get 1 first-round pick, most of the time.
What did I miss? Why didn't they have a 1st-round pick this year? What did I miss?
They traded out.
He traded out during the draft. Yeah, during the draft.
Yeah, that's in it. Yeah, I get. Yeah, Ferguson.
And then you take
you probably could have got a better tight end there. Josiah Stewart. They're gonna love Josiah Stewart. They're gonna love him. He's a really good player. He's another one of those guys that he was a depth guy at Michigan, but he played alongside. He was more actually, to me, a D end. But he played alongside Mason Graham. I think they're going to like him. But I'm looking at, like you say, Chris Paul Jr. Other teams passed on him 4 other times before the Rams finally decided to take him.
I definitely talked about Josiah Stewart. I love Jordan Burch and Josiah Stewart were 2 of my guys that I really liked.
What do you guys think of, real quick, the Jets getting Mason Taylor? I was kind of high on Mason Taylor just because of his size and his speed. But one thing I don't like, and it bothers me, and I don't know if it bothers you guys like me, when they show highlights of guys, and they always show him catching a ball and running out of bounds, or catching a ball and a 7-yard pass and then falling to the ground, instead of catching showing his touchdowns and stuff like that. I always kind of worry. So that's one of the things that triggered me with the Isaac Tesla pick for the Lions. It's okay, they're showing all the highlights of this guy, but there's a 7-yard out and he runs out of bounds, or a 15-yard in and he gets hit. It's where's the real highlights? But Mason Taylor, I think, is going to do Justin Fields very well in that New York Jets offense. Yeah,
tight ends are nice to have when you're a quarterback and you kind of have tunnel vision sometimes as a quarterback, as he did. I thought they did all right. I gave them a B, the Jets, getting Armand Membo with their first overall pick. definitely a smart move here again.
I mean, they did what the Saints did, right? They shored up their tackle spots. Like they both, because one has Fautanu, one has Fashan, one got Banks, one got Membo. So they got their outside. You know, they're gonna protect their quarterback. Think about it.
And you had to too, because Ramczyk retired on you.
The Jets, the Jets running game though should really improve this year. I know that they only got one offensive lineman in the draft, but they do have a pretty good offensive line to begin with. And the fact that Justin Fields is now in the backfield, if Breece Hall decides that he's going to stay with the New York Jets, him and that kid Braden Allen, they can have a lot of success. So I think that the Jets' run game will be pretty vicious this year. And you bring on, that tight end, like you said, and you got what's his name, Garrett Wilson. I mean, you got a couple of decent players.
I had Terrence Ferguson ranked 6th best tight end on my board. So.
Okay, all right. Well, that ain't bad. There was a few good tight ends in this draft. All right, we are getting down to it's $1:20 we're in. So if you guys want to do one more each, I'm good. I got my teams in there though.
Okay, so where people were laughing at? Let's see.
He says the best Jets draft in the last 5 or 10 years. That's
you know what? I don't have anybody else. That's
they didn't even have a lot of picks either. They did a good job with their picks. Mason Taylor, it's a good job in round 2.
But I think overall, like I said, we said this was a draft of starters, not stars. A lot of teams going into next season are still, even with the draft, they're still going to have a lot of question marks. Teams like the Saints, I think the Commanders did actually pretty well in this draft too.
They had a good draft.
They had a decent draft. But I do think this is going to be another one of those years where you have some coaches that are on the hot seat throughout the entire season. And I just look at Mike McDaniel kind of pops into my head out of Miami to be one of those guys that like a likely candidate to potentially get fired like mid-season if they get off to a bad start. But I'm like you guys, man. I am so anxious for the season to start. We've talked combine, we've talked draft, we've talked free agency. I'm ready to talk. You got the Hall of Fame game coming up. To whet your appetite a little bit. Coming up, at the end of July? Isn't that July 31st, or it's the end of July? I think the Hall of Fame game is. So, I'm just chomping at the bit, waiting for the season to get started, waiting for fantasy to get started. I'm diving back into that. Looking forward to that with you guys. And Carolina did have a couple of good picks as well. But
we're going to be doing a lot of fantasy on the show. We're going to have a lot of we're going to have a freaky fantasy football draft every week where we pick a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end, and a defense. And when you pick them prime, once you pick them, you can't use them for the rest of the year. So we
wait. Run that by me. What's your rule?
It's a weekly competition. So every week we're going to pick a quarterback, a wide receiver, a running back, a tight end, and a defense. All right.
Okay.
And we're going to go against each other, and it's going to be fantasy. So we'll decide whether we go by Yahoo Fantasy or ESPN, whatever the point system is, and we're going to go up against each other each week and keep a tally. Plus, we're doing our game picks each week, so we have a lot of competition going on this year. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys, and I can't wait for it to start.
So what did you say about you have to stick with the same guys throughout the season?
No. So once you pick
games,
the guy,
you pick
once you pick the guy, you can't use them anymore. They're out. Can't use them for the whole year. So you got to be strategic.
Man, you have to be careful who you go with early.
Yeah, you don't want to blow your wad early.
Right. That's right. It's like the Eliminator Challenge. Maybe we'll do an Eliminator Challenge also. Why not? I love competition.
That's interesting. I've never been in a fantasy league like that.
Well, we still have to get the order of when we do that because you got to grade our draft that we did together, and then
you know what? I'm glad you said that.
I was gonna ask that.
You know what? I forgot to bring that up. Okay, I did this 3 times because I came out with 2 different answers the first time, and then I got what I think is the right one the third time.
That's a good idea.
Kenny and I had 55, and Prime had 54.
Oh, no way.
I can't believe it. I did it twice to make sure at the end. I'm like, that really?
Yeah, listen, that's why we all hang out together, right? Come on.
I mean,
how
much closer can you get?
That was beautiful.
So which one of us are going to apply for a GM job and then bring the other 2 along with them?
If it was about being a good GM, then there would be a lot more people that are GMs, but that's not what it's about.
Yeah, that was. Hey, your Knicks are up 89-77, Jay, over the Pistons in the third quarter.
I threw a few bucks on them today too, so I need the money. Bring Daddy the money.
Hey, that's amazing. You know what we should do then, Jason? Because we both tied for that, and we were that's who's going to choose who picks the first fantasy guy. We'll go back and forth every week. How about that?
Works for me.
1, 2, 3, we'll do it like that. Cool.
Love it.
Yo,
it.
Prime, you were right there though, and Prime, I thought you won because I remember I chose somebody that was the same position, but then I changed my mind, and I thought that's where I lost it.
But you know what though? Considering that was my first time doing that, man, I'm actually kind of proud of myself.
You should.
Hell
It was
yeah.
1 point.
That's insane.
Literally 1 point.
We all killed it. I'm
We
proud
should
of
all
all
be
of us,
very
man.
proud for sure, and
Not
we're
bad.
kicking ass on these trivia questions as well, by the way.
Yeah, you guys got it right this week again, man. Doing better. I love
Hey,
it.
Kenny, we're gonna hit him next week.
Yeah.
We're
Bring
gonna
it,
hit
bring
him
it.
next week.
I
So
love
we'll
NFL
each have
Bring
one.
it.
We'll each do a question for Jason next week.
Who
I
won
love
the
it. Bring it on.
1962 U.S. Open and what kind of
Yeah.
club
In
did he use when he was-
1948, well, during
Right. The last time a 2-year-old filly won the Preakness was
Yeah, right.
we're gonna get you.
Oh man, hey, great time, yo! Under the helmet, Howie, Steve-O, Levi, yo, all you guys, man.
Darwin, all you guys, man, we love you guys.
All you
Yeah.
coming in, we appreciate it, man. We have a
Don't
great
forget
time.
to subscribe, like, follow, do all that good
Yeah.
stuff. Check us out on
That
social
stuff.
media.
Do it for us, we'll do it back for you. I promise. Hit us up on social media. I'm at Sports Prophet 1 on Twitter. Prime, what's your handle?
Mr. Primetime 313 on Twitter, on Twitch, on Instagram. Yeah,
All of it.
I'm everywhere. I'm all over the place.
And Kenny, you got a few different shows going on. What's coming up next?
Well, I don't know that we used to do Saturday night. We do Wednesday, but I think that now the Saturday night's probably done. And Wednesdays we do a show for a friend of ours who passed away. We do it every Wednesday, no matter what, to honor him. His name is Corey, King Corey, we call him. And so if you guys ever want to just pop in, I'm usually simul streaming or whatever, simulcasting, whatever it is, on my channel from David McNiner, who's the actual runner of the show. So
All right.
if you ever want to
Yeah,
pop
don't
in,
forget-
just say what's up and talk S, there we are.
Yeah, don't forget, Jason and I be popping up on Spaces probably as we get more towards the season. We'll probably be doing that kind of on a Monday or Tuesday to check out the weekend in sports and everything. So yeah, we got big things coming on the we're big time podcast stars now, so you guys need to make sure you follow us, and we'll follow you back. We love you guys. We appreciate each and every one of you each and every week.
No doubt. Under the helmet, that's golden words right there, bro. Really appreciate that, man. Thank you very
Love you
much.
guys,
Keep up
man.
the great content.
Hey,
guys.
real quick, bro, guys, if you ever, please subscribe to Corey Davis. Just look him up, Corey Davis Football 49ers. Corey Davis, you'll be able to find him like that. And sub to him. He passed away, but we continue to try and get him subs every week. So
There you go. Keep them alive. That's what we do. Got to keep them alive, baby. All right, this show we shall keep alive every Thursday, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. We will be here for you. Can't wait for the season to start, but hey, we got time to fill in between, and we will have fun shows for you guys. We're back next week, same time, same channel. Peace.
Peace.